श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज निज मन मुकुर सुधारी वरनौ रघुवर विमल जशो जोदायक फलचारी बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमारी बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु कलेश विकार सिया भर रामचंद्र भद जय शरणम। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीश तिनु लोक उजागर रामदूत तुलित बल धाम अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नाम महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन वरण विराज सुबेशा कांडल कुंडल कुंचित केशा हाथ वज्र ध्वजा विराजे कांधे मुंज जनेहु साजे शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को आतुर प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धर सियाई दिखावा विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे रामचंद्र के काज सवार लाय सजीवन लखन जियाए श्री रघुवीर हरषि उर लाए रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरतहि सम भाई सहस्त्र बदन तुमरो यस गावे अस कई श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीषा नारद सारद सहित अहिसा यम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाँ के कपि कोविद कही सके कहाँ के तुम उपकार सुग्रीव किन्ना राम मिलाए राजपद दीन्ना तुम्हारो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना युग सहस्र जो जन फल भानु लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मिली मुख माही चलति लांति कई अचरज नाही तुरकम काज जगत के चेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुमरे तेते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे हो तन आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी शरणा तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज समारो आपे तीनों लोक हांकते कापे भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा संकट से हनुमान छुड़ावे मन क्रम भजन ध्यान जो लावे सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे चारों युग परताप तुम्हारा है परसीत जगत उजियारा साधु संत के तुम रखवारे असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे अष्ट सिद्धि नवनिधि के दाता असवर दीन जानकी माता राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा, तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे, अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाहि, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई, और देवता चीतन धरहि, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करहि, संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरे हनुमंत बलबीरा, जय 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 हनुमान गुसाई, कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाहि, जो सत भार पाठ कर कोई, छोटे बंदी महासुख होई, जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरी सा, तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजे नातर दय महदेरा, पवन तनय संकट हरणा, मंगल मूर्ति रूपा, राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसौ सुर भूप सिया, पर रामचंद्र पद जय शरणम, मंगल मूर्ति मारुत नंदन, सकल मंगल मूरनि खंदन, मंगल मूर्ति मारुत नंदन, सकल मंगल मूरनि खंदन, श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम, 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 मंगल मूर्ति मारुत नंदन, सकल मंगल मूरनि खंदन, मंगल मूर्ति मारुत नंदन, सकल मंगल मूरनि खंदन, श्री राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय जय राम.
Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to connect with you, our global family, to be together in oneness and in truth. I wish you could all be with us physically. But until that is able to happen, just know that you're with us in our hearts, in spirit, in energy, that we're one. And this beautiful satsang and beautiful meditation times gives us the opportunity to remember that we are together.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
So, the first question today is, I have fallen in love with someone who has a questionable past. I can forgive her past and give her a chance for a better future, but my family doesn't approve.
Yeah.
What do I do? Do I do what my mother asks of me since I owe her a debt? Or do I go with my heart and stand up for my partner?
The trials and tribulations and perils of being young and in love in a traditional family, in a traditional culture where there's a clear agenda about who you'll marry, what that will look like. First of all, it's important to realize, I don't know how young you are, but it's important to realize that in general, unless someone has had a very powerful transformation, unless they've undergone deep work, change, growth, in general, our future tends to look very much like our past. In general, unless we really commit to making a change, to being different, and to seeing what it was that made us act a certain way in the past, and to change not just external behaviors, but really the underlying core beliefs, thought processes, identities, all of that that led us to act in a certain way. If we're not committed to really do that work, our future is going to look like our past. Because all of that is the autopilot of how we live. Whether we use the word sanskara, or we speak about subconscious, or we speak about patterning, neural networks, neural pattern, whatever terms we use, they're all different ways of basically saying, you're going to keep acting the same way. Unless there is a major intervention in your life, a spiritual transformation, a hitting bottom that leads you to really look at your life in a totally different way and do the work, the psychological work, the spiritual work, to really be different, you're going to keep acting the same way. And all of us, by the way, see this in our own lives. Every time we've made a commitment, a pledge, a vow, a resolution, that starting tomorrow we're going to get up every day and we're going to meditate. Or starting tomorrow we're going to exercise every day. Or starting tomorrow we're going to cut out the sugar and the fried foods. Or starting tomorrow we won't be slaves to our anger or our ego. And then we fail. And then we commit again next Monday or next auspicious occasion. But we see how no matter how many times we commit, we resolve, the patterns are the same. And I share this with you because if this person has had a questionable past, unless she has really done an extraordinary amount of work, unless she really understands what triggered those actions of the past, she's going to repeat them. So it's not about judging someone or blaming them or discriminating against them based on things of the past. But it is about having clarity with the likelihood that history will repeat itself. It usually does. So again, I don't know what kind of work she's done. But for your side, I would be careful to really see, has she done that work? Has she had that transformation? Has she really looked at what led her to behave in these questionable ways in the past, so that in the future, when she's triggered, she behaves differently? And if you're sure, if you're absolutely sure, your real heart, a lot of us also mistake when we speak about our heart. We speak more about desire or passion or impulse or that kuch kuch hota hai. But that kuch kuch hota hai is not intuitive wisdom. That's passion. That's excitement. That's impulse. And it's also very beautiful. It's fun. It's the stuff that all sorts of romance books and romance novels are made of. It's the stuff that drama is made of. But don't misinterpret the fireworks of a heart, the fireworks of passion, of lust, of excitement, of attraction. Don't mistake that, which sure feels like it's happening here. But don't mistake that with the real intuitive wisdom, the inner knowing that when we speak about follow your heart, that's what we mean. We don't mean follow the attraction. We don't mean follow the impulse. We don't mean follow the fireworks. And so you need to do that inner work yourself, of figuring out when you say your heart is guiding you, is it really your inner wisdom heart? Or is it just the attraction heart? And don't make a life decision based on attraction, based on fireworks, based on lust, based on excitement, based on impulse. You want to make a life decision based on intuitive wisdom, based on deep clarity. And lastly, in terms of your parents, we don't do what they want because of a debt to them that we have to fulfill. It's not about a burden. Because when you think of a debt, you think of a burden, right? The creditors coming after you and you're the debtor. And it all sounds very burdensome. It sounds very difficult. It sounds very unpleasant. That which we do because it matters to our parents is that which we do out of love. And it should be done given freely. No parent really wants their child to do something just because they feel indebted, with a sense of burden upon them. Parents want their children to live in joy, in freedom, in love. They just want what's best for you. Now, of course, a lot of times they have their own agenda. And in many cases, that agenda doesn't necessarily line up with really your intuitive wisdom, with really your individual dharma. But many times it does. So weigh what your parents want, not just from the perspective of a debt or a burden, but from the perspective of people who love you probably more than anyone else in the world, who want your best interest probably more than anyone else in the world. And they may be a bit misguided. They may have their own agenda that isn't what you know is your dharma. But at least listen. At least take it into consideration as the opinion, the wishes, the wisdom of those who have known you longer than anyone in the world and who have your best interest really at heart. And if you look at all three of those pieces I've just given you, I think you'll know what the right thing to do is. And the last piece, by the way, is if it's true, it'll still be true next week. So if you're not yet sure, give it time. If it's really meant to be, it's going to be meant to be tomorrow. There's no 24-hour sale in love. There's no get it now or it's going to be over tomorrow in love. If it's right, if it's really right, it will still be there after you have really carefully weighed it and considered it and thought about it. And if it doesn't stand up to the test of that short bit of time, then it wasn't right to begin with.
I'm worried that my grandson's father is going to hurt them when he grabs their arm. But I'm afraid that if I speak up, I won't get to see them anymore, because that's what's happened to me with my other grandchildren. My grandsons are quite young, and I know my time with them is extremely beneficial in their lives. What do I do?
So it's a very difficult situation to be in, and it's a situation that not only grandparents, but friends, other relatives, so many of us find ourselves in. When you know or you feel that someone is doing something wrong, especially something that is harming someone else, someone smaller, someone weaker, someone dependent, their own children in this case, what do? Because of course, if you speak up, you run the risk of them saying, forget it, you can't see your grandchildren again. But on the other hand, if you don't speak up, you run the risk of being an accomplice to them being hurt. I'm always in favor of speaking up. But there's a way of doing it that isn't from a perspective of I'm right and you're wrong. Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita speaks about tapas of speech, right speech, as that which is true, but also that which is kind and beneficial. So you're going to have to figure out the right way and the right time. Maybe when your son has grabbed your grandson on the arm, maybe that's not the right time to say something. At the moment, your son's adrenaline is pumping. He's angry. Maybe in that moment, if you say something, all it's going to do is trigger more anger at you and more anger at your grandson. Now, obviously, if he were severely harming them, you intervene at all costs. Obviously, we never permit abuse for any reason. But if you're speaking about something that's kind of on that border of he grabs their arm, something that chances are shouldn't be done, but that also chances are in that very exact moment isn't going to cause that much harm, you may, no matter how difficult it is, you may want to wait until a time when he's calm to talk to him. But better yet, do it before. So you've seen him grabbing the arms already. You don't need to wait for it to happen again. Don't wait until there's a situation where you don't want to intervene at exactly that moment, and your grandson again is subjected to that violence to his arm. Rather than that, talk to him now. At a time when he's calm, peaceful. Talk to him. See whether there's aspects about his life, aspects about child rearing that are especially stressful for him. Maybe some advice you could give. Maybe some assistance you could give from when you were a parent. I mean, you're still a parent, obviously, but when you were parenting a small child. And you could do it gently, and you could do it kindly, and you could do it without accusing. There are all sorts of ways of giving advice and assistance that doesn't make someone feel like you're blaming them or criticizing them. So that's what I would suggest. Definitely speak up. I'm always in favor of speaking up. But choose your time wisely and choose your words wisely. And remember that your ultimate goal is not about convincing your son or your son-in-law that you're right, he's wrong. But your ultimate goal is the safety, the protection, the love that your grandson receives. And so you may be a little bit more humble, a little bit more gentle, a little bit more euphemistic than you otherwise would be. All in the service of creating a safe, loving, kind, gentle environment for your grandson to be raised in. And this goes, by the way, for whether it's your grandson you're protecting, whether it's the son of friends of yours, whether it's a niece or a nephew. If you're intervening in someone else's life because you feel like they are harming or could harm someone else, keep in mind the ultimate goal, which is protecting the other person. Not about being the smart one, not about being the best one, not about making the person feel bad or guilty, but about creating an environment of love, of kindness, of nonviolence, of compassion. And so humility and understanding and kindness and wise semantics goes a very long way.
Did God make us only for his enjoyment?
So, why God actually created us is one of the greatest enigmas of all times. And of course, no one really knows. Different scriptures say different things, different teachings say different things. But what we know is that the word lila, which is the word given to us for this drama, this dance of creation, this play of the divine. This word lila literally is drama, play of the divine. And so we're given to understand that, yeah, it's a play. Yes, God has created us in this play. Now, one of the beautiful descriptions that I've heard, which feels so right to me, is we are one. We are one with God. We are indivisible. Part of that infinite reality. Why then have we been created as these separate beings, given this mind that gets wrapped up by Maya, by illusion, to forget who we are, just so that in fulfilling our Dharma, we can remember who we are and go back to being one with God. It seems a bit circuitous. It seems a bit unnecessary. If we're already one, why go through the drama? And the most beautiful explanation that I've heard is that two coming together as one feels so beautiful. Think about being in a relationship, in a loving relationship. Typically, we do this more in our romantic relationships. So, husbands and wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, lovers of all genders and persuasions and identities. In these relationships, how many times do we create conflict, create drama, sort of pick a fight because we're bored, just for a little bit of excitement? And we may not necessarily be aware of it as we're doing it, but if we are introspective, if we're deeply contemplative and insightful, we'll realize in retrospect, oh yeah, I kind of just picked that fight for no reason. What caused that? Nothing. And then you introspect and you realize, yeah, I guess I was feeling a little bored. But here's why we do it. We do it not just because the fight alleviates the boredom. We do it for a much deeper reason. We do it because to make up after the fight is so beautiful. Because when we make up, when we come back together in love, there's a depth, there's a power, an energy that there wasn't before, or that we'd lost somewhere along the way. You start to take each other for granted, you start to get complacent, you start to sort of live like two ships passing in the night. Then suddenly you have a blow-up fight. You don't speak for hours or days. You yell, you slam doors. Then you make up. Suddenly, there's no complacency, not taking each other for granted. Suddenly it feels like you're back in the honeymoon period again. And the description that I was told about why God created us like that was to give that experience of two becoming one, that yes, we are one. And yes, this two-ness is an illusion. In the same way that when you're fighting with your soulmate, well, that's an illusion. You're one, you're in love. The fight is just a drama. But it's a drama that you believe for a little while. And in the believing of the drama, you're able to come back together in a very beautiful, beautiful way. And so God created us separate, with that ignorance, so that we could come back together in oneness, in love. That we would experience it and God would experience it. So it's not about empty enjoyment. It's not about God's plaything. It's about two becoming one. And yeah, of course it was one to begin with. But that temporary suspension of knowledge, temporary suspension of awareness that we're already one, in order to enjoy the coming back together as one. So as long as we're here, regardless of why God created us. Let us enjoy it. Let us enjoy that coming back together. And let us remember that that is our Dharma. Starting from next satsang, we're going to be starting at 6 o'clock instead of 6:30. As you can tell, it's already become dark. We have to start using this light on the camera, which then of course makes me bright, but the background even darker. And ultimately my goal is that you should have as clear and perfect and divine darshan of Mother Ganga as we sit up here as possible. So we're going to, in one of my most favorite words of Indian English, we're going to prepone satsang to now begin at 6 o'clock instead of 6:30 from now on. And same with meditation as well. So all of our programs now will begin at 6 instead of 6:30, except for our Sunday evening Instagram Live, which will stay at 8:30 as always for our not so early rising family in the west coast of America. But everything else will now start at 6 o'clock. So have a beautiful evening, a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock for our sunset meditation.